Hello friends, will the next budget announce privatization of public sector banks? This is the million-dollar question lingering in the minds of people who have been closely following developments in the financial sector, especially in the banking sector in recent times. Many of the above people believe that the Narendra Modi government will take the first step towards privatizing some state-run banks in a bid to expedite long-pending reforms in the banking sector. It's a truth that privatization of public sector units has been on the agenda of successive governments and they have also succeeded in their efforts to a certain degree. But privatization of public sector banks was never mooted nor tested previously. Of course, there is the privatization of IDBI Bank by selling stake to Life Insurance Corporation, but LIC itself is fully owned by the government. Quoting reliable sources in the Finance Ministry, it is reported that the government is considering multiple options as part of its eventual aim to bring down the number of state-owned banks to 4, which could include merging some of the remaining smaller banks into one of the 4 larger banks, as well as privatizing a few of the smaller banks. Earlier, it was reported that the NITI AYOG had prepared a blueprint for consolidation in the banking sector. It was after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's announcement last year that the government was intending to completely exit non-strategic sectors and reduce its presence in strategic sectors to only 4 enterprises. The Department of Investment and Public Asset Management had floated a cabinet note that was shared with all the relevant ministries. The note had proposed categorizing 18 sectors as strategic and banking was among them. Accordingly, NITI Ayog had recommended to retain control over the country's top 4 state-run banks only. These banks are State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Bank of Baroda and Canara Bank. Similarly, the privatization of 3 public sector banks was also recommended. And these banks are Bank of Maharashtra, Punjab and Sind Bank and UCO Bank. Regarding the remaining 5 PSBs, it was reported then that these banks may be amalgamated with the 4 large banks or the government may dilute its stake to 26% in them over a stipulated time period and exit finally. This was the news doing the rounds earlier. However, it has been more than 6 months since the note was initially floated and the proposal is yet to be taken up by the cabinet. But in last December, during an interaction with the industry leaders, the Secretary of Department of Economic Affairs had hinted that the delay was on account of the government trying to make the policy more ambitious. He had said that the policy will have a detailed implementation plan as well. Therefore, experts and financial sector observers are expecting some hard decisions from the government in privatization of PSBs in the forthcoming union budget. It's a truth that there is a lot of talk going on about privatization of public sector banks. The thought process is that 6 public sector banks, that is the 6 among the initial 19 state-owned banks that were not part of the consolidation process, are now doing well and may not be viable, so the government may come out with a framework to privatize them. There may be a framework or there may be an indication towards that direction. But why the government is in so urgent need of privatizing banks? Apart from finding resources in a scenario of unprecedented fiscal deficit, which is the main reason for disinvestment in public sector units in general, there is another reason also for the privatization move of public sector banks. This is nothing but the fact that otherwise PSBs will need massive capital infusion, especially in the aftermath of the moratorium and restructuring of loans. Privatization of weak PSBs will save the government the need to infuse capital year after year. However, reducing stake in state-owned banks through the secondary market route is not a preferred option right now because of the low valuations of the stocks of these banks. Most of the stocks of state-owned banks are trading at a discount to their book value. So the government is exploring strategic stake sales as an alternative. But in reality, fiscal compulsions are higher this year, which may push the government towards privatization, though there are challenges around the labor laws, quality of assets, and valuations. Part of the challenge is around the labor laws in the country, quality of assets that are put up for sale, and part of the challenge has been around valuations. Experts believe that if the government is able to find ways to overcome these hurdles, we are likely to see the beginning of a new privatization drive in the country, resulting in some state-run banks losing their public sector identity. With the union budget around the corner, let's keep our fingers crossed to face the realities that are going to unfold in a few days' time. Thank you.